Ahem. Hi everyone. Keep it together, Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it is time for a review of the new Róisín Murphy project, Róisín Machine. Originally a member of the Irish trip-hop duo Moloko, Murphy's eclectic fusions of art and electropop have earned her a very strong cult following over the years, and each album reveals a new step in her ongoing artistic evolution. The grand, groovy, and flamboyant Overpowered in 2007. There's also 2015's very tense and strange Hairless Toys, a record she returned with after a pretty lengthy hiatus that started around the birth of her first child. 1 year later, Take Her Up to Monto took things in even more unpredictable and abstract directions. The quirky bossa nova on Lip Service, the depressive balladry on Whatever, Nervous Sleep's unsettling ambience too. Róisín Machine now makes for Murphy's fifth full-length LP, and in a way it sees her taking things back to basics. Not the basics of her debut or even her trip-hop days. No, instead she's dialing it back more to genres that have provided a more foundational influence to all of her work over the years, be that disco, house, vintage dance pop. 4 is on the floor, nocturnal production, lots of space, lots of atmosphere, one dramatic set of vocal harmonies and leads after another, the occasional touch of strings too. I wouldn't say it sounds overly nostalgic or retro, but the record's simplicity definitely calls back to a time when dance music wasn't quite so maximal. And on the surface, Róisín Machine looks like it's taking no prisoners, it's live and direct, but the actual listening experience is a little more complicated than that. These classic dance music styles operate on a very clear set of principles, ones you can easily build on, but change them up too much and you're instantly in choppy waters. Which is why I'm surprised on a good deal of this LP, Murphy spends her time fumbling with these principles and then presenting the long, drawn-out, awkward results. There's the baffling Kingdom of Ends, which sounds like it's in a perpetual state of introduction, constantly building tension with these fat synth bass lines, very airy chords, eerie vocal harmonies, and somewhat commanding spoken word bits that sound like they're being played over a very distorted loudspeaker. The persistent kicks, the harmonies, the chords, they all rise and fall across the progression of the track, but not in a way that really relieves the tension they're all building. Maybe the musical structure of the piece is a co-commentary on the lyrics, which are about being trapped in an endless cycle. Overall, the track sounds like if you had a new disco band try to do a Suicide cover. Part of me admires the intent, but I don't enjoy the results. Then there's Shellfish Mademoiselle, this track in one word: cluttered. There are numerous elements to it that sound like in isolation they could work in many other dance tracks, but do they all work together here? I don't think so. That short, overbearing, sequenced synth bass line that gets so stale so fast. Plus, lining this bass line up against this beat to me is insane. What kick, snare, or anything about this rhythm is this bass line enhancing? Plus, neither of them come off as smooth as the synth chords and vocals that soar overhead. The title of Game Changer is certainly fitting in that once it's on, I want to change games. The throbbing synth chords on this one, those crisp claps, muddy kicks, and buried lead vocals, it sounds like a bad remix of a song from Disclosure's second album. On top of that, I see this track as one of a few examples of just very lackluster songwriting on this thing. While I do appreciate that Murphy's lead vocals, what I can hear of them, are pretty eccentric, pretty bold, pretty upfront, it doesn't really make up for the lack of a coherent and catchy song. Vocally, it feels like she's just throwing whatever out there without a real progression, taking it to any place. From here, there were some tracks that I didn't necessarily find disappointing, but merely underwhelming. There's Something More, which I felt had a very strong start. Good beat, solid simple bass line, haunting vocal harmonies. I want something more. But Lord, does the track take on so little variation across its 7-minute runtime. The bridge and finale in the last 2 minutes you could have brought 2 minutes earlier, and I think it would have given the song a larger impact. And while yes, I do know dance music can get pretty lengthy sometimes. There's even a deluxe version of this record with extended versions of some of the songs here. There's just so little in the way of chemistry and building on this instrumental, the groove gets stale. Now, I don't want to paint the entire record as a fluke because there are certainly some highlights. Simulation, which I found to be a pretty good opener at 8.5 minutes. Frankly, on first listen, I thought this track would have led to a nearly flawless album. That sweet repeating keyboard lick, the mesmerizing combo of hi-hats and kicks, also these very trippy vocal repetitions and effects. It intensifies nicely along the first half, some cool change-ups in the second. It's a solid piece. Then We Got Together is a hyper-aggressive groove machine that sounds like a very unlikely combo of a 90s house anthem and some industrially tinged 80s electric body music. Not a fusion I ever even conceived of personally, but Murphy makes it sound like a totally natural fit. Meanwhile, Murphy's Law is a pretty unabashed disco rager, complete with sensual vocal harmonies, a slinky bass line, slick rhythm guitars, some electric piano too. Plus, I also love that Murphy comes through with kind of a sexy swagger on this one. She's doing things her own way. After all, it's Murphy's Law. Damn. Then the final leg of the record I thought was okay. We get more disco rhythms and very bold rushes of strings on Narcissus, which is fantastic. Then, in a weird way, I found Jealousy to be a perfectly fitting closer for this project that I am very split on. I like the song, and the vocal performance is pretty good too, but it absolutely refuses to function as a piece of dance music. The beat sounds like it's trying to force the song to finish faster than it needs to. It's like the drums are really in a hurry to get to another album or something. And then the bass line. Wow, what is this bass line? It's so sporadic and loaded with so many octaves and slides, like... Yeah, I'm not as excited about this as I know a lot of other people are, and that makes me sad because I typically do like music that throws back to this era of dance music, and I know Murphy's music tends to be pretty adventurous and experimental, and maybe there's an argument to be made that some of the weirder elements to these tracks are meant to be a little off-putting or unsettling or odd in some way, but I don't know. I just saw very little of this project clocking to me as genuinely enjoyable from an experimental perspective. For the most part, the elements of the tracks, these very direct and straightforward dance songs that didn't work for me, just felt like they were non-functioning, not necessarily like they were pushing an envelope, breaking a mold, or doing something wild or left field. So as a result for me, Róisín Machine just is a very mixed bag. I'm feeling a decent 2 strong 5 on this one. Transition, have you given this one a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Róisín Machine, forever.